Here's something almost nobody tells you. Perimenopause isn't one single experience. It's actually two very different chapters, and if you don't know which one you're living in, you could end up on a treatment plan that does absolutely nothing for you, or worse, makes things feel worse. I'm Dr. Jan, and as a physician who works with women through this transition every single day, this is one of the biggest gaps I see in care. So let's clear it up together. What's the difference between early and late perimenopause? Why does it matter so much? And what should you actually do about it? First, let's define our terms. Because perimenopause gets thrown around loosely, menopause itself is simple to define. It's the point when a full year has passed without a period. If you've had a hysterectomy or an ablation and no longer have periods to track, blood work can help confirm where you stand. But perimenopause is the road to that point, not the destination, and that road can stretch anywhere from 4 to 10 years. I like to describe it as a season of hormonal chaos. Your body is riding waves it's never ridden before, and those waves ripple out into how you feel, how you sleep, how you think, and how every other hormone in your system behaves. Here's something that surprises a lot of women. This can start far earlier than you'd expect. Your late 30s isn't too soon. I've had patients begin noticing changes at 35, at 39. Usually the very first clue is your cycle itself shifting. Maybe you've been like clockwork for 20 years, 28 days, same as always, and suddenly you're stretching to 35 or 40 days, or skipping a month entirely. That irregularity is often the opening notice that your body sends before anything else changes. So now that we understand what perimenopause actually is, let's get into the two stages, because this distinction is where the real power lies. Early perimenopause tends to sneak in quietly. Your cycle might still look completely normal on paper, 28 to 30 days, right on schedule. But underneath that normal-looking calendar, your body is already whispering different symptoms. Sore, tender breasts, periods that feel heavier than they used to, waking at 4 or 5 in the morning and lying there, unable to drift back off, a short fuse you didn't have before, snapping at your husband, losing patience with your kids over things that never used to bother you. These symptoms tend to show up loudest in the second half of your cycle, the luteal phase. Why does this happen? It comes down to your eggs. You were born with every egg you'll ever have, and as you move through this stage of life, your body simply has fewer follicles left to recruit for ovulation. Less ovulation means less progesterone, sometimes none at all, in a given cycle. And progesterone is a remarkably calming hormone. It's the one that helps you fall asleep, stay asleep, and feel settled rather than wired. When it goes missing, your body loses its brakes. Think of it this way: estrogen builds up the lining of your uterus, and progesterone is supposed to step in and say, "That's enough. We don't need shag carpet in here. A nice thin Berber will do." If you remember shag carpet, you know exactly the vibe I'm going for. Without progesterone doing its job, that lining keeps building, and periods get heavier. Without progesterone working on your brain's GABA receptors, sleep gets fragmented. You wake up in the middle of the night and just can't settle back down. And without that calming influence, anxiety, irritability, and even panic attacks can show up in ways that feel completely foreign to who you normally are. Meanwhile, estrogen isn't disappearing yet. It's actually swinging, sometimes running higher than what's normal for you, even while trending downward overall. This is exactly why blood work in early perimenopause can be so misleading. Your levels might look fine one week and totally different the next. That's the real reason many doctors hesitate to rely heavily on lab work at this stage. You'd practically need to test repeatedly just to catch a moving target. So what can you actually do in early perimenopause? Start tracking. There are wonderful apps built for exactly this. Logging your cycle alongside your symptoms so you can see patterns. When things flare, which phase they cluster in, what you're actually experiencing day to day. Bring that log to your doctor. It transforms a vague, "I don't feel like myself," into real usable data, and it helps determine what kind of hormone support, if any, actually makes sense for you. There are also non-hormonal paths worth exploring, which I've covered in another video. But the key insight here is this. If you're in early perimenopause, giving you estrogen when your estrogen is already running high could make things like breast tenderness worse. That's often why I'll start patients in this stage on progesterone alone. It fills the actual gap without adding fuel to a fire that's already burning. Now let's talk about late perimenopause, the stretch that leads directly into menopause itself. Here, your cycle starts changing more dramatically, shortening, then lengthening, becoming unpredictable in a new way. That's because estrogen has now entered the picture in a bigger way. As estrogen declines, periods start spacing further apart, and a whole new set of symptoms tends to emerge. Hot flashes, night sweats that have you kicking off the covers at 2 a.m., vaginal dryness, more frequent UTIs or vaginal infections, changes in your skin like new wrinkles or texture shifts, and that maddening brain fog, walking into a room and forgetting why, blanking on a name you've known for decades. Eventually, both estrogen and progesterone drop low enough that periods stop altogether, and that's the official arrival of menopause. Here's why all of this matters so deeply. If you're in late perimenopause, your body may genuinely be craving estrogen support, because your estrogen is now the thing running low. But if you're still in early perimenopause and get placed on both estrogen and progesterone right away, you might actually be adding estrogen you don't need, potentially worsening symptoms tied to estrogen excess rather than deficiency. This is exactly why knowing your stage isn't a minor detail. It's the difference between a treatment plan that finally gives you relief and one that leaves you wondering why nothing's working. My advice is the same no matter which stage you suspect you're in. Track your cycles, write down your specific symptoms, and if you do pursue hormone testing, make sure it's timed to specific days of your cycle. And make sure your provider knows how to interpret results in that context. Estrogen levels on day 4 or 5 of your cycle look completely different from day 26, and different again around day 10 to 12. A single random blood draw, disconnected from where you are in your cycle, simply can't tell the full story. So here's a quick recap. If you're dealing with sleep disruption, agitation, anxiety, and heavier periods but your cycle is still fairly regular, you're likely in early perimenopause. If you're noticing hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal changes, and your cycle is genuinely becoming irregular and spaced out, you're likely further along in late perimenopause. You are not too young for this. You are not imagining any of it. This is almost certainly your hormones, and there's a real physiological reason behind every one of these symptoms. The more you understand about which stage you're in, Sophia, the more empowered you become, and the closer you get to a care plan that actually helps you feel like yourself, again, now and for the years ahead.